Welcome to our Monday, August 16th board meeting. If you'll please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to remind everyone that if you would like to address the school board this evening, you will have to sign up on the speaker sheet and provide all requested information. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. So with that, we'll move on to our agenda, approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Varacco.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. You have an agenda before you from last Thursday. Seek board approval of that at this time.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Kelly,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. So now we'll move on to our correspondence. Mr. Marshall.
Yes. I would like the opportunity to read a very short statement. Can everybody hear me?
Clamp.
This is not a town hall meeting. This is a meeting for us to conduct our business. I am asking that you please give us the same respect we have given all of you. Go ahead, Howard.
Thank you for the courtesy. I want to be sure everyone hears this statement. This is a statement on the vast number of emails received. Civility is not one of your strong suits. Statement of the vast number of emails received by the Lake Central School Board. This is referencing the administrative recommendations for the start of the school year 2021-22. Due to the total number of emails involved, full and complete responses to all senders, parents, and interested parties may not have been returned at this point. These emails encompass both full support for the LC administrative recommendations and also those of disagreement. The school board wishes to acknowledge to all senders that their comments and concerns were received and read. We appreciate the passion expressed on both sides of this important and crucial issue involving our student body, with the safety and welfare of our students, staff, and employees being of prime importance to all of us. Thank you to all our parents and patrons for their concerns, and we are wishing for an early end to the present unforeseen pandemic and a return to past normalcy. Respectfully, the Lake Central Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to our liaison committee updates, and I believe the only one that has anything is Dr. Malco.
Correct. We had a Lake Central Education Foundation meeting last week. Would encourage to invite all of you out there to join and become a member of our Lake Central Education Foundation. It's a wonderful organization. Gives us money and opportunities to enhance and enrich the instruction in the classroom, and teachers a reminder that the grants are due by the first week of October. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go on to our official school board business topics, consent agenda. Dr. Varacco.
Thank you again. For our consent agenda this evening, seek board approval for the minutes from the special board meeting on August 2nd, regular board meeting August 2nd, special board meeting on August 6th, and the executive session on August 9th. Additionally, please approve the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures that you received in your packets last week.
Move to approve.
I
We have
second
a
that motion.
motion by Mr. Marshall and a second by Dr. Malco. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Ms. Nowacki, I know that we have sheets for public speaking. Do we have anybody for action items? Thank you. So that we'll move on with our official school board business topics regular agenda. Dr. Varacco.
Thank you again. For our first item this evening, we want to do some special recognitions. I asked Mrs. Mucha to come up and help me with the certificates for our first two individuals. We were happy to partner with the I Can Bike Camp people this summer. We were fortunate to have both Christy Wolstenholm and Kim Splant spearhead this project. We had 40 students with certain disabilities and difficulty learning how to ride a bike come in, and with the help of 100 volunteers, we had 40 students, 40 people learn how to ride bikes better, and some quite well. The riders' ages ranged from 8 to 32 years old, and so we were very happy to be able to partner with this group earlier this summer. So I'd ask Christy and Kim to come forward, if they would, to receive a special recognition, a certificate where we say, in appreciation of your efforts to improve the lives of children in our community. Thank you very much for your help. And for our other recognitions, I'd like to introduce Jeff Sandor, Assistant Athletic Director, who will bring down a couple of other coaches and recognize some spring athletes that had some outstanding achievement.
Thank you to the board. Thank you to, is this working? No. Thank you to the board. Thank you, Dr. Varacco, and thank you to everybody that came out to show such great support tonight for our spring sports seasons. Today we have 3 teams that are here. The first team that we're going to bring up, Coach Rody wanted to speak on behalf of his team tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and let him do that. But it was our boys track and field team. Please welcome Coach Jeff Rody.
We were very lucky this year to have 3 events qualify for state. In the 300 intermediate hurdles, we had Gordon Soroviak, who is a senior. He lost a few meets out of his season due to COVID, and still came back and was the sectional champion, and he ran the number 4 time, all-time here at Lake Central, and finished 12th at state, and that it was senior Gordon Soroviak. I don't think Gordon's here tonight. Thanks. I'm sure he'll be watching it. The 4x4 team, the 4x400 relay, were undefeated Duneland Conference champions. They were sectional champs, regional champs, and they were 4th at state, earning them all-state status. They were number 3 all-time at Lake Central. And if they're here, I'd really like them to come up. It was freshman Josh Berry, senior Hayden Podlin, senior Jordan Duggan, and junior Ryan Mauder. Are any of them here? And the last one I know is here. Cameron did not make the baseball team and decided to come out for track. He is the 100 and 200 meter sectional champion. He was the DAC runner-up in the 100 and 200. He was the regional champion in the 100. He ranks number 4 all-time in the 200 meter. And in his first year of running track, he is now our school record holder in the 100 meters. And in his 10th meet total, he placed 9th at state, earning him all-state honors as a sophomore, only running 10 times. So Cameron, please come on up. Thank you very much. I'll turn this back over to Jeff Sandor.
The next team we want to recognize was our 2021 state runner-up softball team, who had one of the greatest seasons that our school has seen. They ended up finishing with a 32-1 record, which was good for the 2nd most wins in school history. These young ladies were 13-1 in the Duneland Athletic Conference, which made them co-champions. Most of the season, and I want to say most because I think it was all but 1 or 2 weeks, they were ranked nationally in the national poll, and we reached as high as number 12 in the country. The first time in our storied history, we had 3 simultaneous awards that happened, and all 3 of these awards are about as special as it comes. Grace Wrenchen was our IHSA Mental Attitude Award winner, which was given out after the state finals. Coach Jeff Sherman was named the Indiana State Coach of the Year, as well as several local awards. And the young lady, Peyton Pepkowski, was named Indiana Miss Softball for being the best player in the state of Indiana on this season. These young ladies won a sectional championship by a combined score of 29-0. They defeated Crown Point 3-1 in the regional, and then they rolled through the semi-state with 2 victories, one over Columbia City and another 8-1 victory over Noblesville, which led to them being the 2021 IHSA state runners-up. Ladies, at this time, we're going to ask you to start making your way down here. We do have a certificate to present to you. First, Kaylee Gillespie. She was our manager. Thank you. Amanda Artema. Jolie Adams. Jordan August, who is also going on to play collegiate softball. Olivia Baylog. Emma Bennett. Brianna Bracken. Mackenzie Kalinsky. Kylie Connor. Michaela Kriesbaum. Sydney Dolozecki. Morgan Heineke. Lily Mabs. Brianna Miller. Brianna Mitchell. Aubrey Morales. Caitlin Odrobanak. Victoria Olson. Peyton Pepkowski. Paige Reitz. And Grace Wrenchen. Coach Jeanette Gray. Head coach Jeff Sherman. And not in attendance, assistant coach Russ Serrato. Girls, congratulations on one heck of a season.
Could I just add a comment? Thank you for bringing them to our attention. I try to get to as many track meets as I can, and I absolutely love them, and I love watching the softball. And you kids are to be congratulated for your resiliency, your tenacity, your cooperation, your ability to come together as a team. So, way to go, LC.
The next team we're going to recognize was our girls track and field team. This team ended up finishing as undefeated regular season champions, Duneland Athletic Conference regular and postseason champions. They had an average margin of 80 points, and for those unfamiliar with track, that's quite a bit. They were IHSA sectional and regional champions, and they set the record for our school in the most points scored in each. This year, they finished 7th at the state meet with 26 total points, which was the most in school history, and they were really, really close to being in that 3rd to 4th place cusp. There were a handful of individuals, seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen that all made the state finals, and we're going to speak a little bit about each of them now, and we'll get them down for their certificates. First, I know she already shipped off to the University of North Carolina to compete in track, so she is not in attendance today, but that is LaTreasure Johnson. LaTreasure finished 2nd in the state finals in the long jump. She was the regional and sectional champion, and she was an Indiana All-Star in the long jump. The second senior is Missy Fritz. She finished 7th in the 100 and 9th in the 200 at state. She set a school record in the 100, sectional and regional champion in the 200. She was a sectional champion in the 100. She was also an Indiana All-Star, and this was all with dealing with an injury late in the season.
All right.
Our third senior is Abby Martisik, and she was a sectional champion in the 800 and also named an Indiana All-Star. We have 3 juniors that were state qualifiers. Essence Johnson finished 5th in the high jump at state in her first season competing in the high jump and was also named a regional champion. And Gwen Schilling finished 15th in the pole vault at state. And then we have Kai Delosa, who ran the 300 hurdles and was an alternate in the 4x400. There were 4 sophomores. Riley Kleitch finished 7th in the long jump at state, and she was the first female athlete to participate in 4 events at the state meet as a sophomore. She did the 100, the 200, the long jump, and the 4x100 relay. Ann Carmichael, another sophomore, finished 8th at the state finals, and she ran the 300 hurdles. She was also a sectional champion in that same event. Noelle Delosa ran the 400, and Lauren Golden the 300 hurdles and the 4x400. And we had There were 3 freshmen that participated in the state meet. Stacia Thompson, who was a DAC champ. She set the school record in the 100 and 300 hurdles. We had, and forgive me on the name, I believe it is Ini Oladende. She was a sectional champion in the high jump and a 4x100 relay participant. And we also had Christian Delosa, who ran the 100, 200, long jump, and 4x100. Two relays that deserve to be mentioned. The 4x100 relay team made up of Riley Kleitch, LaTreasure Johnson, Callie Cronke, and Missy Fritz finished 8th at the state meet. They were DAC champs, and they did set the school record. And the 4x400 relay team of Noelle Delosa, Stacia Thompson, Abby Martisik, and Ann Carmichael also finished 8th at state and were sectional champions. At this time, if we have any girls track runners here, if they'd like to come on down. Ann Carmichael. Ann, hang on, I have another one for you. Missy Fritz. Noelle Delosa. Essence Johnson. LaTreasure Johnson. Riley Kleitch. Callie Cronke. Abby Martisik, Anastasia Thompson, and once again, thank you for having us, and hopefully we can see you with a handful of our fall sports teams soon. Congrats, ladies and gentlemen.
Before we carry on with the rest of our business, any of you athletes who were only here for recognition, this is a good time to sneak out. We'll pause for 60 seconds.
Way to go, everybody.
So in response to a lot of inquiries I've received, mostly through email, I decided to put together some information tonight for the board's benefit, and also for some other folks who may have been thinking about the same types of issues. This first slide goes over some of the quarantine pieces. We've been accused of being too rigid, even back into last year, and it was very cumbersome, and when families had it roll through and they hit that 24 days, it was rough. We understand that, but we were trying to follow the rules as prescribed by the Department of Health, as dictated through Indiana Code. And so as we watch our webinars each and every Thursday, and I would encourage everybody to watch it, even if you don't like what you're seeing, just to see what they're saying. But they make it a point to tell us each and every week that quarantining is not a may provision, it's a must. This is considered a communicable disease, and you must follow these other guidelines, including... Danielle, I'm not playing that game tonight. If you're going to keep interrupting, I'm going to stop each time, okay?
This isn't a dialogue. It's a presentation.
So reporting of cases, contact tracing, isolating positive cases, and quarantining of close contacts are required by law. You can ask Mr. Slager. He's here, I believe, after the meeting.
Just keep pausing.
So I think it's important for everybody to know, too, what's at the bottom of that screen, that, you know, close contact is 6 feet when people are unmasked, but it's only 3 feet if people are masked. So...
Please stop.
So the General Assembly has a chance to mess with this. So these are the quarantine options that we were given this school year, for this school year in July. And the first one in bold is what we've chosen to do, and that's return on day 11. Last year it was day 15 with what they call enhanced precautions, a very loosely defined term. What it means in practical purposes is if we only have a couple cases in that classroom on day 11, we'll put them a little farther apart from their classmates until we get to that day 14, and then they go back to their normal chair. In the lunchroom, we'll also In the lunchroom, we'll also have more space between them and the other students. Here's another piece. I think most people have gotten over this, but I did put it in here anyway because it's been all over every document from all parts of state government that masks are required on buses, and that was taken out of the hands of local people through And we have had some people inquire to our office about drivers after their bus is emptied out and they're either heading to their next route or heading back to the bus barn, and that provision does not require them to keep the mask on when they're heading back to the bus barn or in between routes. So I just wanted to clarify that piece for people on both sides of the issue. Some of the highlights from the Department of Health update from last Thursday at 9 a.m. Average cases have increased ninefold since early July. Hospitalizations are the highest level they've been since February. Child and teen cases up 5 times since the end of June. Kids now over 20% of all cases. Masking up can help to keep in-person instruction going. They repeated this Governor Holcomb slogan many times during the presentation. On the bright side, according to some people, vaccination first doses have increased. And, the Department of Health mentions throughout their presentation that keeping students in schools is mission critical, and we totally agree with that. That's really what we want to try to do, avoid the e-learning mandate at all possible. So this is a really important piece for our public to hear. The language changing in the presentations from earlier this summer, where the Department of Health recommends masks for all individuals indoors in the K-12 environment, to July's message, IDOH strongly recommends masks for all indoors, to last Thursday's language, all K-12 schools should require universal masking when indoors during the school day. So a lot of people don't agree, but that's sending a message to me and to our administrative team that for now, our plan is the best we can do. The data, I know some people think the data lies, but what we've been provided is that the June daily average of cases in Indiana was 284 cases. July was 600. And when we ended last school year, we were running in that, 5 to 8 cases a week total, which was a lot more manageable than what we've even seen to begin this school year. But overall in Indiana, the cases are pushing 3,000 a day. They usually lag by a couple days, but you can see the 4 or 5 day data there. You can follow it just like I follow it. We had 1,452 cases among students last week, with only about a third of the schools in session, and most of us not for the whole week. We had 80 teachers and 118 classified staff cases across the state as well. Today, we had student cases at the high school, Clark, Coling, Protzman, and Watson, in addition to a teacher and a bus driver. So the current cumulative case data is 22 students, 5 staff, and approximately 175 student quarantines. As I mentioned before, last school year ended with very low number of cases and even low regional and statewide infection data, which was defined by, I guess, or symbolized by that blue that we were on the map at the end of last school year, and really almost through July this summer. Our weekly updates on our website will resume this Wednesday. We collect data through Tuesday from all of our principals. Some of them get tied up and don't get it to us as quickly, but as soon as we have all 10 facilities and Campagna, we put that, and the bus barn, we put that information out to our public. A lot of schools have already switched from optional to mandatory. So what they're seeing is a combination of positive cases and quarantines, and they too want to try to stay in school. They want to try to have in-person instruction. A couple of schools have already reached that 20% point. I've emailed that to some people. That in the past, the county has told us if you get to 20%, we're going to ask you to shut that school down for a week or two to let whatever's swirling in your building calm down. So over the weekend, and I don't know the reasons why all of these, but Noblesville, Hamilton, Southeastern, Carmel, Lawrence Township, Pike Township, Washington Township, previous districts that are like us, Bartholomew Consolidated, which is Columbus, Evansville, Warwick, West Lafayette, Lafayette, and several others also went from optional to mandatory after only a week or a little more of being in person. Well, unfortunately, as most people realize, we don't just get to draw an invisible line and say, don't come here, COVID. In the last two waves, it worked its way from the southern states. I'm going to wait. Because people at home ask me to not talk when other people are barking, because then they can't understand what's being said and they really want to hear the message, even if they don't like it. I think people at home can understand me perfectly fine, sir. This is a presentation right now. You can ask your questions later, okay? And I'm in the office every day, Chris. You can call me, okay?
Yes, you can. Email or call.
So there have been a couple of important questions that we have yet to answer, and I want to acknowledge it this evening because we're still looking at them. The first is people took exception to volunteers not being able to come in if they hadn't been vaccinated. And an interesting question was asked, if you have some staff that you don't know if they're vaccinated or not, and they're working with children with a mask, why can't I come in without a vaccine and work with children with a mask? And so we have to work through that yet. We're just not sure how many volunteers we're going to be having this year, depending on how things go. The second question that came up, which is another valid question, is 3 weeks in blue too long for you to shift? If we come back from this upsurge that people are seeing across the globe, and I expect we're going to see it too, but the sharp rise is followed by a sharper decline than in the past. And if we see that, is 3 weeks in blue too long? Should 2 be enough? And it's a valid question because we really want to see a trend. We just don't want to see it go 1 week and then back up. And nobody wants a policy that's mask on, mask off. That's for sure. And so we can consider that as we get towards the other side of this upsurge. But I get a lot of communication from folks who make absolute statements that this doesn't impact children, and I think we need to be careful making absolute statements about anything along those lines. We're fortunate in our community that we haven't had any students get really sick yet, and I hope they never do, and I hope we are being overly cautious. And I'll take the criticism when it's all done, if that's the way it happens. But the way the data is going right now, I just don't see how it hurts us to be cautious and to do our best to keep kids in person with their teacher for as long as we possibly can. And then I would encourage everybody to get So, the Department of Health has a weekly update on Thursdays at 9. I would encourage you to watch it. There's a pink banner on our website where you can get the information on how to find that easily. And then, again, as I mentioned before, we'll be reposting our data, both positive cases and quarantine data, Wednesday afternoons as we did last school year. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Thank you. Now we'll move on to our Director of Human Resources Personnel, Mrs. Mucha.
Thank you very much. We are recommending that the following appointments and resignations be approved.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall.
Second.
Second by Dr. Medlin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. My second item is for the Teacher Appreciation Grant. Each year, in order to receive the grant, our board must pass a policy describing the distribution of this grant. It's the same policy as last year, except we specifically stated the amount that would differ between highly effective and effective teachers. According to the state, it must be at least a 25% difference, and that is what we chose for our policy. So I'm asking the board to approve this policy so we can approve for the grant.
I move that we approve the policy for the teacher appreciation grants.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin. Second. Second by Ms. Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to our Director of Primary Education. No? Oh, you have nothing. I'm sorry. Pardon me. We'll move on to our Secondary Education, Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. For my first item, I am seeking your approval for the professional leave request as presented.
Second?
We have a motion by Dr. Malco and a second by Mr. Marshall. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And for my second item, I am seeking your approval for the field trip request as presented.
Motion to approve. We have a motion by Ms. Kelly,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our Director of Facilities, Mr. Ledger.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. I just have an update on the summer projects that was submitted in your board packet. We just have a couple remaining items left, basically all outside stuff that won't affect students and staff, that just because of some supply chain issues and stuff, it hasn't been delivered. There's a roof ladder going up at Coling, some minor brick repair at Grimmer, and
Mr. Ledger, I'm sorry to interrupt, could you speak up?
Oh, sure. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're tall, and the mic is
Yeah, I was just saying that we just have a few items left to complete on the list. Most of these items are outside that won't affect students and staff. We couldn't get because of some supply issues. There's a roof ladder at Coling. There's some minor brick repair at Grimmer, as well as some flashing at Holman. So we'll get those done just as soon as possible, as soon as the stuff comes in. I think the roof ladder's doing next week, and the brick at Grimmer is also doing this week. So we should be able to get that wrapped up in a couple weeks. There was a question last time I was here about the athletic list. I gave that to you at your station today. We haven't really done a lot with that this summer because of resources, and we couldn't get into the areas because kids were practicing, so we're going to concentrate on that now that school's back in session, that we'll be able to do that here this early fall. So that's at your station as well.
Thank you. Any questions?
And I'm going to give Rob stuff tonight, too, because he's out of town.
All right, we'll go right into our Director of Business Services, but Mr. Ledger will be presenting for Mr. James.
He has an action item list as donations as are submitted in your board packet tonight.
I move to approve the donations.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin. Second. Second by Ms. Kelly. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And the last item on Rob's agenda, just for your information, is that time of year, it's budget time. So in your packet, you saw a timeline of Rob's budget upcoming for the fall. So it starts on Tuesday, September 7th. And if you have any questions, please email Rob and he'll answer anything you have.
Okay, yeah, I did see that timeline, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
So now we will move on to our public comments, but before we begin, I'd like to, on behalf of the school board, we want to remind all guests that public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person and 30 minutes total. When we are at the 30-minute mark, I will ask the board if it wants to extend the public comments portion. If the board chooses to extend the public comments section, but then begins to hear repeated messages and comments, we as a board reserve the right to end the public comment portion. If the board wishes to continue, we will do this for each 30-minute mark. We'd also like to remind all in attendance to maintain silence throughout the entirety of the comments being made by any individual recognized to speak this evening. Refrain from personal attacks or derogatory statements about any school employee, fellow citizen, student, or anyone else in attendance or not. Only those who have signed the speaker sheet and provided all requested information will be called on to speak. In order to keep things moving, we will hold up a yellow card indicating to the speaker they have 15 seconds to wrap up their comments. In order to be fair to all speakers, we will adhere to the 3-minute limit. So with that, we will begin with Martin Conroy. If you could please state your name and your address for the record, please.
Martin Conroy, 10102 South Branch, St. John.
Thank you.
So last school year, we didn't know what we didn't know, and we were willing to give the benefit of the doubt and err on the side of caution for this pandemic. While there was data indicating children were at a lower risk of serious illness, we had to do everything possible to protect the teachers and staff who were at higher risk of serious illness. The Lake Central Board listened to parents and rejected the administration's recommendation that the safest choice was to offer only virtual learning for the first 4 weeks. Last year, one could point to numerous other school districts like in Lake County and statewide that were not offering in-person learning. LC led the way and proved the other districts were wrong to deny children in-person learning. Last year, we faced a very different situation. We have more data to indicate the COVID risk for children. We understand more about how different protocols such as masks impact children, and we have vaccine. However, our school COVID restrictions remain largely unchanged. We recognize that COVID has claimed many lives. We also recognize that it's here to stay and large outbreaks of COVID are inevitable. The challenge before us is figuring out a way to best navigate through the ongoing outbreaks. As we move forward, we should consider the COVID risks for children if the risks to children warrant each and every one of these restrictions put in place at our schools. There are some questions we should consider. There are many school districts that have had large outbreaks and switched from mask optional to mask required policy. Some districts have changed course after just 1 or 2 days into the year, as they were already seeing large outbreaks. Carmel was cited as an example. Those kids didn't get it at school. They got it at home, right where all the kids got it last year. There's no way the positive kids caught it at school and tested positive within that time frame. Just like last year, they caught it at home. We could also ask if there's been large outbreaks at schools that started with a mask required policy. Are we considering the right factors when determining what restrictions are necessary? Should the number of cases be the key determinant in driving restrictions, or should the probability of serious illness and harm be driving our decision making? Finally, we should apply a cost-benefit analysis to the situation the way every other decision in life is made. One factor is not a deciding factor unless you're an absolutist, whatever. But you can't base life on one factor only. Cost has to be considered. Are our children being developmentally hampered by this? Are speech impediments being formed? Are kids' psychological development being impaired? And is education being impaired? These are the things that have to be considered as we go forward, and the number of absolute
you.
cases is not the deciding factor.
Christine Conroy. If you could please state your name and address.
Christine Conroy, 10102 South Branch here in St. John.
Thank you.
And I concur with Dr. Veraco in that COVID doesn't present an absolute zero risk to children. But I also would caution people to not look at the headlines and look at the data behind it. So first, I'd like to talk about the risk of serious illness in children. He noted that 20% of the new cases are children. But statewide, from July 1st till today, according to the Indiana COVID dashboard, there are a grand total of 86 children hospitalized across the entire state. And here in Lake County, it's a grand total of 2 hospitalized over that time frame. Now, to me, that implies that our hospitals are not overwhelmed with pediatric patients, even though we know that the Delta variant is already here. The Indiana COVID dashboard shows us that 86.2% of the cases in the last 30 days have been the Delta variant. So we have some evidence to indicate what kind of a risk it presents. Furthermore, per the American Academy of Pediatrics, COVID results in between 0.1 and 1.9% hospitalization for children. Now that's a pretty low number, but let's look at the headline today. Per the HHS, U.S. hospitalization for children due to COVID reached an all-time high this weekend. But then you read the article and the details, and you find out that children still make up only 2% of U.S. COVID hospitalizations. And that's factoring in that we're now having less adults hospitalized because of the vaccine. I would also like to note that the comment that we've had a 5 times increase in, I think it was hospitalizations for teens and children. Well, you have to look at the absolute number, because after all, going from 1 to 5 is a 500% increase, but the absolute number is still very small. Now let's shift for a moment and look at the risk of pediatric death from COVID, and also consider the risks of other infectious diseases. To date, per the Indiana dashboard, 0.1% of Indiana's statewide deaths have been of children. The AAP did a study out on 8.5 that between 0.00 and 0.03 of U.S. pediatric cases to death to date have resulted in death. And to put things in perspective, per the CDC, since COVID began, 354 children have died of COVID, whereas 859 have died of pneumonia. And I also think we should consider, how do our protocols impact other infectious diseases? Because they are not going away. They're just lying in wait. Case in point, RSV. The CDC issued a directive in June to several southern states, including Florida, that they were seeing unseasonable spikes in RSV after a historically low rate during last year's cold and flu season because children were isolated. Now, several states, including Florida, are seeing large surges in RSV. So now they're dealing with a surge upon a surge. So lastly, I would like to remind this board that you are not governing long-term care facilities with a high risk profile, and that you should consider the relative risks of students when making your decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Theodore Karras. Theodore Kargas. K-A-R-A, is it Y-I-A-S? Theodore? Oh, I don't know.
Theodore Karajas, 10124 South Branch, St. John.
Thank you.
Well, honestly, a lot of my talking points have already been taken using data. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to bark from this podium today. So there was a report from the WHO, and it was in 2016, that recommended that masks and quarantines not be used for pandemics. Now, the scientific method tells you if you have decades of research and suddenly in 3 months everything changes, there's something wrong, and there's something that doesn't really pass muster. Next, we voted, from what I understood, we voted about 70%, parents voted about 70% against masks. This board then took it upon themselves to go against those who voted for them, to be able to put something in place that you feel we don't have a right to make the decision for our children. When The presentation was up there. The quote was, a lot of schools had transferred over to masks, and I counted 6. And again, it's those types of terminologies that distort the information that is being displayed, not looking at the whole picture. More so, Fauci, I will not say doctor, recently stated that hopefully there are no long-term negative impacts to children for wearing masks all day long. Hopefully. So that you, as a board, are making a decision what risks our children should be taking, not the parents. You're taking that right away from the parents against all of the science, all of the data. You're cherry-picking the information that is being used, and you're ignoring the big pieces, the entire picture. Statistically, you have to look at the whole picture. You cannot look at small pieces of this. Finally, again, strongly recommended. Wow, I must do that. I must follow it, otherwise I will be punished. No. Strongly recommended, okay, great. But you have a room, you have a school district that you're representing. When you have 70% of the parents tell you what they expect, that's what you should follow unless it becomes law. And even then, I don't know if it's a lawful order, but it is what it is. But you made you took a decision in your hands against the parents' wishes for only something that is recommended.
Thank you. Mike Aurelio.
Mike Aurelio, 8895 Overlook Point, St. John.
Thank you.
Board of Education, Dr. Veracco, thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it. 3 items I want to speak about are good reasons to make bad decisions, limited government, and parents' rights. Good reasons to make bad decisions. Positivity rate. COVID is here to stay. It's never going away. It's not going away. Positivity rate will rise and fall continually. Positivity rate is a clumsy indicator. It should be looked at, without a doubt, but should not be linked to the primary decision-making of a mask policy for our school district. Good reasons to make bad decisions. No credible study has found that mask wearing during a school day or a school week is effective at stopping the spread of COVID. Not one study, not one credible study. The mask policy is a wrong tool for the wrong job. But I'm certain that you guys the board has been delivered truckloads of fear and worry, without a doubt. What if too many teachers get quarantined? What if too many students get quarantined? What if we need to close the schools? What if somebody gets very sick? What if? It never ends, right? So these fears and worries about the unknown absolutely should be considered, but they should not be the primary factor in mask policy. Good reason to make bad decisions, good intentions. The famous saying, good intentions are not good enough. So, limited government. What is the correct balance between government regulation and parents' rights? That's a tricky question. Cindy, we know each other. I know you're a strong believer in limited government. Janice, I thought we disagreed with this before, but I find that we do agree. I know that you're a strong believer in limited government as well, and I've found through people I know and good references that, Nicole, you are also a strong believer in limited government. So part of an elected school board's responsibility is to protect the people from an ever-increasing powerful government, and in this case is represented by a school administration that tends towards over-regulation. Minus the truckload of fear and worry that you have been delivered, I believe that we would be in agreement on a mask mandate or a non-mask mandate. So parents' rights and local control. Government Holcomb allowed for local control and resisted a mask mandate. Our state legislature allowed for local control and resisted putting in a mask mandate. So far, our county has allowed local control and resisted a mask mandate. Our school board should allow local control and resist a mask mandate. Please resist a temptation to deny parents local control of their kids. What I ask for is please recommend, even strongly recommend, but please don't put in a mask mandate or a functional mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Edgar Bassick.
I'm not going to talk about masks, if that's okay with you guys.
Can you please state your name and address?
Yeah, I can. Edgar Bassick, 7340 Vale Drive in Cherville.
Thank you.
My goal in this brief period is to convince you that the proof of vaccination requirement is actually a very poor litmus test for a healthy volunteer, and to instead replace it with the requirement for a negative rapid test result a day prior to volunteering to better keep our kids, faculty, and staff safe. I want to acknowledge two things. First, I genuinely believe that all of you have our kids' best interests at heart when you accepted that recommendation. And second, I absolutely accept that vaccines are safe for the vast majority of people. I, like you, want to keep COVID out of our schools. So my first point, vaccines are not 100% effective. We know this to be a fact. Pfizer and Moderna have efficacy rates above 90%, but Johnson & Johnson is only at around 66%. Our current policy doesn't dictate which vaccines are allowed in, despite these broad differences in efficacy. Second, vaccine efficacy declines over time. Data from Israel's health ministry showed that for individuals vaccinated in January of this year with Pfizer's vaccine, it was only 16% effective at preventing symptomatic infection. Current policy does not take into account when a volunteer was vaccinated. Third, new variants are starting to infect and be spread by people who have been vaccinated. That's one of the main reasons that the CDC changed their guidance around vaccinated people wearing masks indoors. They specifically said new data that began to emerge that the Delta variant was more infectious and was leading to increased transmissibility when compared to other variants, even in vaccinated individuals. Under our present policy, a volunteer with a vaccination card who tests positive for COVID that day can walk into our schools without any problem. Fourth, this policy absolutely discriminates against people in our community who, under the advice of their physician, have delayed getting the vaccine for health reasons like pregnancy. There is absolutely no reason that a healthy, pregnant mother shouldn't be allowed to volunteer on a field trip or help out at a class party. I went personally and got a rapid test today so that I could learn more about the rapid test because I had not taken one. I asked the doctor about its accuracy. She told me current tests are 97.5% accurate. Lastly, vaccination cards are very easy to fake. I was able to download a blank image from off the internet and print it on cardstock in 15 minutes. All I'd have to do is fill in my information, and no one in the school would be any wiser. On the other hand, this lab test right here lists the address, date, and time of when I took the test, and I can stand in any office and call that facility in front of an administrator and prove that I actually had that test taken. Please consider changing this policy to better protect our kids and not discriminate against those in our community who don't have COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Zymak.
I'm going to touch on two subjects. The first one is we'll go to
Can you
the
please
mass.
state your address for the board, please?
Douglas Zemak, 9032 West 90th and St. John.
Thank you.
I've got from the dashboard of the Indiana Department of Health, and I've actually got this for the positivity rate for Lake County. And I took the group of kids from 5 to 19 that would be in high school. Anybody over 19 probably shouldn't be there anymore. And I've come up with a 4.64 positivity rate. Now, these are figures I have from August 5th. And then I took the group, which would be our teachers that are teaching, and from 20 to 69, because they would fall within that group. And then we have all the different percentages here. Now what happens is when you take those percentages, positivity rates, and divide it by the number, that group of teachers is 15.10. Who are we protecting here? We're having these kids wear masks to what? Protect the teachers? Those are the victims. Those are the culprits, the teachers. They're passing it along. I talked to Veraco in January. And I said, you know, you went from in-person learning, you went to e-learning after Thanksgiving, and you went after Christmas. The kids weren't the problem. It wasn't the janitorial staff. It wasn't the food service staff. It was the teacher staff. They talk a good game, but they don't put it into practice. Okay? Now, the next point, I'm good, because everybody has talked about all this other stuff. We had our, I think we should all go for school choice too. Because when you follow the money, things happen. Now, the next thing I want to talk about on August 2nd, the debacle on August 2nd, was when our head of secondary education specifically mentioned that SEL is not CRT. That's probably right. I've read a lot of the literature on SEL, and I've watched about 20 of the videos on it. CRT is a bold, loud, and in-your-face form of indoctrination. SEL is like a thief in the night, quiet, sedate, and non-confrontational. How did all these people ever make it into society without SEL for their social and emotional? Okay? That's why we're at the point right now. The SEL approach is how we have arrived at our present position. Everyone gets offended about everything. And everyone gets a participation trophy. The United States ranks 22nd in the world when compared to other industrialized countries in math and science. And we're worried about social and emotional. All these people have made it all this time.
Thank you,
Why
Mr.
don't we
Zinak.
teach it?
Your 3 minutes
Why
are
don't we
up.
teach the things that are important?
Robert Buckman. Could you please state your name and address?
Robert Buckman, 7731 West 83rd Lane.
Thank you.
Crown Point, Indiana. My name is Robert, class of 2007. I spent a lot of time preparing and asking myself, where can I add value? So let's get started. The only ethical option is choice. Any child who wants to wear a mask should be free to do so, but forcing them to make personal health and developmental sacrifices for the sake of adults who refuse to get immunized is abusive. Vaccines work, and that's why they offer the flu shot every year. At this point in the game, individuals are making conscious decisions. So let's take a look at the numbers. On the Indiana.gov COVID dashboard, you can pull a report that includes gender, age group, county, count, reported on each day. So that's what I did. Filtering by Lake County, the 5 to 17 age group, which is the school-age children. There's 105 cases between August 3rd and August 12th. Why this 10-day time frame? That's your COVID guidelines for quarantine. These are these 10 days of the individuals that conceivably could pass along the virus. This information is what we have available to use. 105 shared cases across entire Lake County. Divided by 17 school districts means 6 students. Lake Central, Clark, Grimmer, Kaler, Bibbage, Homan, Coling, Pfeiffer, Protzman, Watson. I couldn't put a sick kid in each school if I wanted to, much less each grade or classroom. That's what the data is telling us. Based on this, I submit to you that your quarantine rules would take more children out of the classroom than the disease itself. Keep in mind, this is a conservative estimate where the 12 to 17 age group have the option of being vaccinated. And if we took them out, it would be 2.5, rounded up to 3 for the 9 schools that teach 5 to 11-year-olds. I'm going to run out of time, but Johns Hopkins this month produced research saying $42 billion of the National Health Institute's $42 billion that they spent last year, less than 2% went to COVID clinical research, and not a single grant was dedicated to studying masks in children. Go to the Lake Central homepage. Click on the in-person instruction protocol for fall 2011. It's not hard to find. It's one of the big 3 red banners at the top. Your own PDF states that vaccination is currently the leading public health prevention strategy to end COVID-19 pandemic, and that LC won't be mandating the vaccine. I don't think you should mandate the vaccine. Remember, I'm pro-choice. However, I find it to be inconsistent that you're choosing not to mandate the leading health prevention strategy, but presumably what, the second best, maybe the third best behind staying at home. The decision to mask our children isn't based in science because there haven't been any studies. Based on the data, we see that the kids are less susceptible and spread the far. Thanks so much.
Steve Bolt.
I'm speaking for him. I'm speaking right now. Excuse me, before he speaks, I cannot let this go on another minute before I say the comments previous to his comment. I apologize to the teachers and staff out there for the derogatory comments that were made towards them. All of you should thank your lucky stars that you have these teachers and staff.
We appreciate our teachers for sure. Steve Bolt. Stop. Thank you. Steve Bolt. Last call, Steve Bolt. Okay, thank you. Steve Bolt, come on down.
Hey, let me speak. Steve Bolte, 318 Nottingham Lane, Sherrville.
Thank you.
Board, superintendent, the public. Board, y'all, you're going to deal with it at the ballot box. You're going to hear from the people. Mr. Superintendent, I don't doubt for a second that you genuinely have our children's best interests in mind. That's your job. Every one of you does, okay? I believe that. I question your resources. Sure, the CDC, the IDOH, the NIH, lots of doctors, lots of big pharma funding them. Like it's been said, you're cherry-picking data, okay? 4 or 5 years ago, Johns Hopkins did a study. You know what the third leading cause of death in America is? Professional medical error. They're not infallible. They're human beings like us. They can make mistakes. Fauci doesn't know what's best for my child. I know what's best for my child. Not some government bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. The CDC recommends pregnant women get DTaP shots, that's whooping cough, flu shots, and they know full well that if you open the package, it says right in the package, it's never been tested for safety or efficacy in pregnant women. Go ahead, fact check it, okay? So there's contradictory evidence from your sources. It's our choice. When you don't have good, solid data, you have to let us make the decision as it affects our child's safety. Because you're overlooking facts that there's been studies that say wearing a moist mask all day long can give you a fungal infection. It's been brought up about learning disabilities. It's important. I have kindergartners. It's important for them to be able to see their teacher speak so that they can learn how to enunciate words. What about mental stuff? People are being criticized because they spoke out about Simone Biles, but in today's day and age, we should tip our hat for people for their mental health. Okay, right? That's the new thing. Well, what about the trauma it's causing our children to not be able to be afraid of everything? Fear the air, fear your classmates. You know, come on. There are two sides to this story, and you're just trusting the supposed experts. And sir, as I said, the data shows the supposed experts, they cause the third leading cause of deaths in our country. I know what's better for my kid than some bureaucrat. I know, quite honestly, I know what's better for my child than you do, sir, when it comes to this.
Christina Abel.
Christina Abel, 9043 Teal Place, St. John.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to state how you handled implementing mask mandates this year was wrong and unacceptable. You led parents to believe that at the very least their children would start the year with optional masks and a sense of normalcy. Then 4 days later, you held a special meeting and railroaded your preferences in regardless of what the majority of the parents wanted. It wasn't right. I hate to break it to this school board, but these are our children, not yours. None of you were elected to make medical decisions for our children. You say that you are following the science. You say that you are following the CDC. Well, let me show you something. This is straight from the CDC website. This has every COVID positive test from day one till today. It's color-coded by age. The yellow is for the kids. You guys can look at it. You can see. All the way down. You can see that there are ups and downs, okay? It goes up, it goes down. My next graph, this represents the deaths by age from day one till today with the same color-coded lines. Where's the yellow? Can't see it. You know why you can't see it? Because it goes along this baseline the entire time at 0. Children are not dying from this virus. In fact, the very few that have died were in extremely rare circumstances and were tied to having major underlying conditions such as leukemia, chronic illnesses, and neurodisabilities. Now let's look at Lake County. Lake County has 485,493 residents, of which 2,870 have died from COVID. The death percentage for our county is 0.59%, not even close to a percent. And of the 0.59%, 99.999% of those were over the age of 17. We go yellow when 10 people out of every 100,000 in our county test positive for COVID. That's 0.01%. We go orange when 100 people out of every 100,000 test positive, and that's 0.1%. We go red, and everybody thinks we're all dying, when 200 people out of every 100,000 test positive, and it's 0.2%. These are just tests. This doesn't mean that they had symptoms, this doesn't mean they were hospitalized, and it doesn't mean they died. It's called fear-mongering, and we, the parents, are tired of it. We are done with our kids suffering. How long are we expected to allow our children to wear masks that are proving to be more dangerous than the actual virus? How are teachers expected to teach children to read and pronunciate words with face coverings that are covering their mouth? How long are we supposed to be okay with our developing children's brains receiving decreased oxygen for 7 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? How long? We started this meeting all saying the Pledge of Allegiance. In doing this, we all just pledged allegiance to the flag by the United States of America.
Thank you, Ms. Abel. Time is up. Thank you. It is 30 minutes, school board. We are at 30 minutes. Do we want to continue? Nikki, Howard?
Howard.
We are at 30 minutes. Would you like to continue with public comments?
I'm sorry, what are you asking?
We're at 30 minutes. Would you like to continue with public comments?
What does the board want to do?
We did last time.
All right.
We
Ken
didn't say we're not. We're just asking a question.
Clawforsee?
Hello.
State your name and address.
My name is Kenneth Clossy, 532 Iroquois Street in Cherryville.
Thank you.
I would first like to thank you guys for allowing me to speak tonight, regardless of my not being able to go to school. I am the student who has been refused to go to school the past 5 days. Past 5 days of school, you have refused me my education because I will not wear a mask. I want to go to school. This is my last year of school that I have. I want to be here for this school. This is my school. This is my home. I played football here for 3 years. This is my school. I want to go here. Your rule is costing me my education here. I am missing out on my valuable class time. I am falling behind in my classes. I haven't received any homework from my teachers. The administrators have told me to simply go online and find it myself. Another point that I would like to bring up is that on Wednesday the 11th, during the morning announcements, it was stated that hats and hoods are not allowed per the dress code because you are not able to identify students if they have hats or hoods on. Could someone explain the process of how you're able to identify students with the face covering? As I said before, I want to go here. This is my school. I have grown up here. I have been here since first grade. This is my last year of school, and you are ruining it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Dante. Dante Gerdeman. Dante Gerdeman.
You're stopping people from work. You should be ashamed.
Stop. 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 We have a guest speaker. Stop. Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Dante Geralaman, 13042 Waterleaf Drive, St. John, Indiana. I am quite frustrated with the decision that was made based on national data, CDC located in Atlanta, Georgia, and also Lake County data, which is 626 square miles of diverse communities. The CDC found that mental health-related emergency room visits increased 31% in 2020 for children between the ages of 12 and 17 from March to October, compared to the same period in 2019. Ironically, in May of 2020, the CDC released a scientific study on non-pharmaceutical measures for pandemic influenza and non-healthcare settings, personal protective and environmental measures, emerging infectious diseases, clearly stating, quote, "In our systematic review, we identified 10 randomly controlled trials that reported estimates of the effectiveness of face masks in reducing laboratory-confirmed influenza virus infections in the community from the literature published during 1946 through July 27th of 2018. In pooled analysis, they said we found no significant reduction in influenza transmission with the use of face masks. Yet the CDC still pushes the mask because this clearly wasn't about science. While the masks serve no level of protection, scientific studies show that they lower oxygen levels in the blood while raising carbon dioxide levels, affect respiratory physiology, function, actually trap exhaled viral pathogens, which increases the severity of viral blood. They collect and colonize viruses and bacteria and are dangerous for those with asthma or other respiratory issues and are a major threat to a child's development due to anxiety, sleep problems, and creating a fear of germs. Are you, as a board, going to be accountable for these health and mental issues over COVID that has a 99.7% efficacy survival rate? I ask you to take away your premeditated thought process of the decisions that you guys have already made without the will of the people that you were elected to represent. I ask you guys to open your hearts and not our frustrations with each other, and look at raw science, and look at science from actual doctors that are in the field, from scientists that are in the field, that are not being censored by big tech, and find resources, and critical thinking of asking, why can't we see all sides of the argument like Americans are allowed to do? Dr. Varacco, if you want to have a debate in medicine and you're talking to another professional, if they give you a very valid point, you would change your mind. I ask you, board, use critical thinking in the way that you make this next important decision for our kids. Thank you.
Dan Misick. You state your name and address, please.
My name is Dan Misick at 807 Gregan Place, Dyer, Indiana.
I have 3 grandchildren in Lake Central, and I'm extremely concerned about the social and emotional development and health of these children wearing masks that are caused and may have unintended consequences, such as social isolation, preventative or pervasive anxiety, and fear, even fear of air. I have some expertise in this area of social and emotional development. I'm a retired school social worker for 10 years. I spent 10 years providing individual and group therapy to regular ed students and special ed students. I have an master's degree from George Williams College. I also co-authored an article in the book, Social Skills in the Classroom, Cedar Press, 1975. I created my whole master's thesis on developing social and emotional objectives to try to help students cope. And for the past 36 years, I've had a different practice called primary prevention, in which I go to schools, deal with kids and teachers, and try to provide a entertaining and yet knowledgeable experience. And over 2 million kids have participated in this program. Daily blocking the emotional expressions of students is dangerous. Not seeing a kid smile or frustration blocks the development of their interpersonal relationships. Communication is totally confused. Some of these students find it difficult to cope, become isolated, fearful of those people not wearing masks. The truth is, these mask mandates will have short-term and long-term consequences, and frankly, we don't know the severity of what that will be. This is an experiment. By mandating masks, you are experimenting and exploiting our children's social and emotional development. A lot of parents refuse to have their kids be used as guinea pigs. And I question the state law that allowing schools to experiment on our children's lives. The parents choose what risks they involve their kids in. They choose the encounters that their kids can have, whether it's going to the park, riding their bike to the park, walking blocks from their house, or participating in an activity. It's the parent's choice to review all the information, to determine the best course of action, whether weighing the risk versus the benefits. That's their freedom. It's not the CDC or the government to make that choice. It's our choice. We have the medications, we have vaccines, we have preventative measures. These are our children, and we have the freedom and the decision-making skills to make our choices. You have taken that choice away. Other school boards have left mandates to the parents to decide. We respect all parents, whether they choose for their children to wear masks or not. However, I resent this board for eliminating our freedom, our choice, and injecting us into this social and emotional experiment.
Thank you, Mr. Misick. Christy Nash. Christy Nash.
Hi, everybody. Christy Nash, 2542 Red Oak Drive, Dyer, Indiana. Thank you for letting me speak. This is my daughter with me. She is a Lake Central grad. She just graduated this year. Pretty much everybody's talked about what I wanted to talk about, but we're not talking about asymptomatic. We don't mask kids that aren't sick. We don't mask children if they're not sick. Per last year, September 2020, Dr. Anthony Fauci stated, "In all of history of respiratory-borne viruses of any type, asymptomatic transmission has never been a driver in outbreaks or risk." Also, last year, Maria Van Kerkhove of the WHO, the World Health Organization Emerging Diseases and Zoonosis Unit head, has also stated in a press release that transmission by people who are not showing symptoms is very rare. So there's really no efficacy with these masks. Also, there's 40 years worth of compiled data that shows that cloth and surgical masks do not prevent the spread of viruses. Only N95s prevent the spread. And so if you want to help our children, you need to get them fitted properly with these N95 masks, and they need to be changed multiple times throughout the day. Also, it's a muzzle. Let's not forget our history. In Nazi Germany, people were considered diseased, and they were considered diseased, and our children are not diseased. Let's not let history repeat itself. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Margaret Jablonski.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Jablonski, and I'm a mother of 3 students in the Lake Central School Corporation. I'm also a nurse currently working in 3 different hospitals across Indiana and Illinois. I forgot my address is 9920 Matthew Street in Crown Point. I am here somewhat to talk about bullying. I object to the bullying of school districts, school administrators, students, and teachers by government agencies such as CDC, public health departments, and countless others. You all need to stand up to those bullies if you want what is best for your students. Do your own research and question. Do not accept guidance and recommendations at their face value. At this point in the pandemic, do not equate cases and hospitalization. Do not equate cases to hospitalizations and deaths. I object to a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to mitigations against a disease which poses no significant threat to kids, contrary to mass media hysteria. I object to being bullied by the board. You are ignoring the fact that 70% of those who responded to your survey want to make masks optional. Not banned, optional. If we were talking elections, US candidates would have been quite excited about getting 70% of votes, am I right? I object to continued dehumanization of my kids. They are told to cover their faces, distance themselves from others, and to limit necessary and natural interaction with other people. I am much more afraid of the long-term effects of these divisive and fearful practices than I am of COVID. All that in the absence of studies that would prove masks save lives, or studies that would deem prolonged mask wearing to be safe. Until the school board can provide such non-biased studies, I will continue to object. I object to unreasonable and ineffective restrictions being placed on our freedoms for the good of the collective. Think about what that teaches our kids about the country they live in and the Constitution we live by. I will not have them taught to be fearful, unquestioning, and obedient sheep with no individuality. I have lived through that once, and I do not consent to it here. I object to masking, testing, and quarantining of healthy asymptomatic kids. Stop with the hysteria. Did you conduct the same screening processes, the reporting, the quarantining, and isolating for flu in the past? Listen to the parents. We know our kids. We've done the research. We are telling you what we want. We are getting organized. We are getting louder. We are getting more and more frustrated. This is just the beginning. Since my children's future, their health and well-being are my responsibility, not yours, I just say, my kids, my choice. Give us back the choice.
Thank you. Laura Dubish. Laura Dubish. She's coming. She's coming.
I'd like to read
Could
to you
you
what
state
the
your
role...
name and address, please?
Laura Dubish, 8897 Winding Trail, St. John, Indiana. I'd like to first read to you what the role of the school board is. Per the Indiana Attorney General, local school boards are regarded as the principal body representing citizens in local educational decisions. Just wanted to get that clarified up front. I hope you will all decide to fill your role and represent the overwhelming amount of citizens right here before you. Many of my points have already been said, so I'll skip them. But let's look at one of Larry Varacco's recommendations to date regarding COVID and why we have a board. The one about last fall was taken. You all know what happened. The right decision was made, not thanks to the superintendent, but thanks to the board members who listened to the parents. Second example, December 20th last year, the Indiana Department of Health revised the return to work quarantines, allowing teachers to return to work in 7 days instead of 14 days. Varacco did not implement the change, and he was wrong then as well. Instead, he ended up closing our schools in January for a 2-week reset. He did this admittedly due to fear of staff shortages, which may not have happened and may have been prevented had he cut the quarantine in half like we were allowed to do. Varacco's August 7th email to me this year states, I agree that last year's data indicated that only a handful of quarantined groups resulted in additional kids getting sick. So why then, board members, are you supporting Varacco's recommendations, which again are based on fear of what may or may not happen? As well as no data regarding the masks. Did you know that the governor of Indiana gives the local school board the power to make decisions such as mask mandating based on the district data in our district? Not based on the United States, not based on the county. He has not given you that power. To date, this district data is unavailable. It has not been made available, although multiple requests have been made of Dr. Vivi Lala, the Lake County Board of Health Director, who Dr. Varacco often refers to. She says she's waiting for answers from the state. Give us the data. When the county last year was at 13%, our district was at 4%. Our district remained for most of the year between 4% and 6% last year, allowing in-school learning. Thank you, Dr. Malkow, for attending the meeting last Thursday and once again asking the Board of Health for data by zip code. I'm asking all of you board members to represent us citizens by considering the following. On August 13th, Larry Varacco's email says, there is no one from top
Thank
hospitals.
you. I'm sorry, it's 3 minutes.
Can I finish this quote?
Mayo Kovacevic. Could you please state your name and address?
Yes, hello and good evening, elected school board members and Superintendent Dr. Varacco. My name is Mile Kovacevic. I'm a concerned parent and community member. I worked in pharmaceuticals and I was tested for PPE and certified for the company that I worked for. I'm going to be brief, and Director Varacco, there are actually absolute facts, and I'm going to list a few of them. 3M has a video online accessible via a 3M PDF file. Via their technical data bulletin, number 174, published date June 5th, 2020, which is an open source research. If you're familiar with 3M, they are one of the world's leaders in mask manufacturing of surgical masks and respirators, which state from the source that surgical masks do not provide respiratory protection against inhalation of small airborne viruses and pathogens. From the Personal Safety Division of 3M, this is directly from the source, quote, most surgical masks are not designed to seal tightly to the face, and research has shown that they do not achieve the level of contaminant reduction provided by a NIOSH is National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, certified respirator. This has been found to be true both in laboratory studies and in healthcare workplaces, when infection rates were tracked among workers who wore N95 respirators, workers who wore medical masks, and workers who wore neither. N95 respirators were found to be significantly protective against bacterial and viral infections, while surgical masks were not. Surgical masks have not been assigned protection factors by OSHA, once again that's Occupational Safety and Health Association, and should not be relied upon to help reduce exposure to inhalable airborne particles. Furthermore, from the National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health's website, another absolute fact, American Journal of Infectious Control, date March 2006. Quote, conclusion, the N95 filtering face piece respirators may not provide expected protection level against small virions. Some surgical masks may let a significant fraction of airborne viruses penetrate through the filter, providing very low protection against aerosolized infectious agents in a size range of 10 to 80 nanomicrons. It should be noted that the surgical masks are primarily designed to protect the environment from the wearer, whereas the respirators are supposed to protect the wearer from the environment. May 9th, OSHA fact sheet regarding respiratory infection control, respirator versus surgical masks, states, quote, surgical masks are not designed or certified to prevent inhalation of small airborne contaminants. These particles are not visible to the naked eye, but still may be capable of causing infection. Surgical masks are not designed to seal tightly against the user's face. During inhalation, much of the potentially contaminated air can pass through the gaps between the face and the surgical mask and not be pulled through the filter material of the mask. All I ask is meet.
Thank you. Joseph Loud. Joseph Loud. Kathy O'Brien.
Kathy O'Brien, 8512 Magnolia Street, St. John.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I believe the mask mandate is an overreach of the school board's authority. Having served on a school board in a different district, I can appreciate the board's position and obligation to provide a safe environment for our children. However, your obligation is not greater than my child or my own medical autonomy. We as parents have been given the sole responsibility of overseeing our children's health by giving birth to them, not the school board. Although many may argue that masks do no harm and are therefore a harmless precaution that any reasonable person should be willing to comply with, however, I believe the science strongly says otherwise. So then the question begs asking, which science do you follow? I believe a lot of the speakers have covered a bunch of those items, so I'm going to let their words of science and concerns cover that section. But I do have to ask, why is the board mandating a mask from a box that clearly states on the box that the mask will not prevent COVID? I'm assuming you've all taken the step of reading the box. That it really does say that. And so I have to ask why we're mandating that our kids put on something that the manufacturer says it will not work for. The next question I have to ask is, why are we mandating masks for this flu? This one is only 99, this one has a 99.95% recovery for under the age of 65, which covers almost all teaching staff and of course our students. So it's not the school board's job to decide which science is being utilized or which political agenda we follow. I believe that decision is up to us, the parents. The school board cannot, nor should it assume responsibility for my parental decisions. We are not, nor should you take the emotional weight of burden. It's not your job to have that weight. It's not your job to have that stress of making my decision. And that's what you're doing when you mandate it. You're assuming a responsibility and honestly a heavy emotional toll that I don't think you guys should have to carry. And especially when you realize that we parents, we're here, we're checked in. We're not gonna risk our own children's lives. If we really believe that there's a danger, we wouldn't be sending them to school. if we felt that masks would make a difference, like we did last year, because we didn't know the science, we didn't have the data, we sent them to school with masks because that's what we believed was the right thing, because we're not going to risk our children, and we're not going to be so heartless to risk someone else's children. Okay, so I just ask that you reconsider that this isn't your responsibility. We're not asking you to carry this weight. We're willing to do it.
Mike Robolski.
Hello, Mike Robleski. Address is 8163 Knickerbocker Place,
Thank you.
St. John. I'm new here, so been here since April. Father of 4. Thank you for the board and the superintendent for the time to speak. I did move here for Indiana's religious and medical freedoms. Specifically, I pulled my whole family here, and that's why I'm here now. I have a background in quality, a certified quality engineer, quality manager. I look at data, I take the emotion out of it, I have to make decisions about doing the right thing every day, having to remove the emotion out of there. So, and then you're gonna hear some of my own personal statistics from my family. 3 of my kids, 3 of the 4 are currently in the school system, and 2 of my nieces are here. 2 of my kids have allergy-induced asthma, or can kick on a severe asthma attack. That's from my wife's side of the family, thanks to her, but never mind. So it can be hard to breathe, spontaneous asthma attack. My 14-year-old has it the worst. He's had surgeries to correct this or to help with it. And now with being in high school, he's wheezing, he's calling us, asking us, can I go home? I can't breathe. He couldn't do gym class for 3 days. He went to do sports after one of those days, and I think all day just having the mask on, he's throwing up at the end of the day. He's miserable. My 5-year-old daughter, her first day of school, was so happy to see her come off the bus, and she looked lethargic coming off the bus. The first question, how'd you like your first day of school? And she said, Dad, my ears hurt. That's all she had to say. And this girl loves school, loves her teacher, she loves everybody. And now she's got a sinus infection, and I can't even get an antibiotic for her because CVS is out of that antibiotic. So the infections are going around if people are taking drugs to cover them up, and you can't even get them apparently. My niece, who's in 2nd grade, she's at Holman. Last Thursday, she passed out in class and vomited. She has a respiratory infection and a sinus infection, and now she's on antibiotics. So I have a sample size of 5, so 60% have major issues, 100% have a minor, because breathing difficulty, doing it all day. So that's a small data set, but it's pretty unforgiving. And just today, we got 2 of our high school kids sent home. We got a medical note saying they cannot wear a mask in school. They got sent home immediately. And then one of those kids missed his first tennis match. Mind you, he's a brand new kid to the school. First match, no, go home. You can't be here. You weren't in school long enough today. And then he wanted to stay and watch his team. No, you can't. You got to go home. He had to go home. My football player, he couldn't go to practice. He had to go home. So I do wonder why we're not entering medical exemptions. That's a tough pill for me. And I hope you make the best decision, and masks should be optional. Thank you.
Thank you. We're at the 30-minute mark. We have about 13 more speakers.
13?
Mm-hmm. We have about 13 more speakers.
13 more speakers on the list.
Continue.
Nicole, what do you think?
Think you got anyone? Maureen Ralston. Maureen Ralston. Thank you. Can you please give us your name? You're not called up to the podium, please. Thank you. Please sit down. Could you please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maureen Ralston at 7033 74th Place in Cherville.
Thank you.
A lot of my points have already been covered this evening, so I won't get into them. The first thing I want to address is why we're taking any advice from the CDC. So we already know that the CDC has backpedaled on the majority of their recommendations that they have made over the last several months, including their PCR test that they have admitted that has included every infection under the sun, including a sinus infection, a common cold, the flu, all falls under COVID. And now the latest scare tactic that they're falling under is this new Delta variant. And that's why they're trying to mask us all again, is because this new fear that they've created, I like to call it fear porn, is now the new Delta variant. So let's make us all afraid now because this new variant, the Delta variant. So I will read to all of you what, and let's keep in mind, there is no test for the Delta variant. So walk into CVS, walk into Walgreens. There is no test for a Delta variant. So here are the symptoms, everyone. Fever, headache, sore throat, runny nose, dry cough, fatigue, body aches, chills. Doesn't that sound familiar? Now I would like to read to you all the symptoms of a common cold. Sore throat, fever, runny nose, cough, sneezing, actually there's more, headache, body aches, and stuffy nose. So someone up here earlier was speaking, the ability to have some critical thinking. So why don't we all have some critical thinking and realize that this is a bunch of BS, that we all know that we have been lied to. Yes, there is a pandemic. The cases are going to go up. This is a cold. This is a virus. People are getting together. The cases are going to increase. We have treatments available. We have a jab if you want to take a jab. If you want a mask, wear a mask, but make it a choice. It is our choice. Make it our choice as parents. If we want to mask our kids, let us mask our kids, but let it be our choice. Thank you.
Melissa Hodges. Hi.
9510 Bryan Place, Crown Point.
Thank you.
I'd like to address the protocol that states that parents must be vaccinated and provide proof of COVID vaccination in order to volunteer in their children's classrooms. Teachers are allowed to teach unvaccinated, as they should be. I have no problem with an unvaccinated teacher teaching my child. But if teachers can teach kids all day without providing proof of vaccination, then why can't parents volunteer? This makes no sense. This policy sidelines a population of people that choose to exercise their medical freedom. Discrimination is defined as the act of making unjustified distinctions between human beings based on groups, classes, or other categories to which they are perceived to belong. This current protocol around parents volunteering is discriminatory and it needs to change. Thank you.
Chris Friesbaum.
8837 Teal Place, St. John, Indiana.
Thank you.
I want to ask you guys a question. Is this still Lake Central Public School District? It's a public school district, correct? Who's the public? So, on the second, we voted. The fact that you guys changed it, and we don't care about this color bullshit, excuse my language. Red, green, yellow.
Please don't use foul language.
Well, I said I apologize. The fact that you think that you should make the choice for us parents on our child's health care is BS. That's for us. and only us. If we weren't capable of making those decisions, DCFS would already pull our children away from us, right? Do we make decisions for your children or your grandchildren? Nope. Last I checked, when we elect you guys, we appoint you to be able to make decisions for us. But when we speak, you guys are to listen. Still a public school corporation. This is not Lake Central School of Communism or Larry's leftist laws. This is our school corporation, not yours. Maybe we need a clean slate. Maybe we need to wipe this whole table off. Maybe you all need to go. Sorry, Janice, I think you do a great job, but unfortunately, a clean slate means everybody goes. And, you know, I don't have anything else to say. I don't care about numbers, colors, all that BS. I don't want my kid wearing a mask. That's my choice, not yours. It's all their choices, not yours. And Larry, you've been here a long time. You did some good things, just like the school board. Maybe it's time for you to go. Not because of your decision yesterday or the day before, but the decisions you might make in the future that aren't good for our children. Maybe it's time for all of us who would like to see a change at Lake Central School Corporation. You thought we were organized for this? Wait till you see how organized we're going to get. And Medlin, as far as I'm concerned, you can step down today.
Thank you. Brandon Shanks. Brandon Shanks.
Brandon Shanks, 7015 Pershing Road, Cherville, Indiana. So your feelings do not determine reality any more than mine do, which is why it is imperative that we use facts to make sound, logical decisions, especially when it comes to our children. It is impossible to remove all risks of harm from our children's lives as much as we would like to, so we are forced to weigh the risk and reward every day and do what we can to protect them. It's a much larger risk for my children for me to load them in the car and drive them to soccer practice, to see their grandparents or ride their bike to the park than the risk that COVID-19 will severely injure or kill them. Why take this risk? Because the goal of living is not to merely stay alive. I want my kids to live a full and meaningful life, and part of that is going to school and learning how to become productive members of society. How can we tell our kids to have courage when we as adults have decided to tell our kids that fear of a virus that is less of a risk than the flu, and that is a statistical fact, is that it's less of a risk than the flu. The argument could be made that our kids should wear masks to protect the teachers and parents, but at this point, everyone of the appropriate age is eligible to get a vaccine, which has been proven to be very effective at preventing severe illness or death from COVID-19. I'd explain to my kids that they do not need to worry about this virus killing them, as they are healthy children whose immune systems are more than capable of fending off this virus. We did not wear the mask for flu, which once again is a greater risk to our children than COVID-19. So what has changed? What changed is that we have decided to let our feelings dictate our decision making instead of using logic and reason to weigh the risk. Last year, we did not have the knowledge or the understanding of whether this virus was a greater impact to our children, but thank God, we know that the virus is not a huge risk. So why have we decided to have them wear masks for COVID-19 and not the flu? Should I tell my children to wear a helmet to school and a bulletproof vest? No, because this is not a risk that is demanded in the classroom. It is also not there for wearing masks. What are the long-term impacts of telling our children to wear masks all day long and breathing through sweat and spit? How does this impact them psychologically? How can they learn how to read facial expressions through masks? Are we as adults who are at greater risk living the same standard of wearing masks all day long as we ask our children? Why are we concerned about cases and not severity of side effects and death? What if COVID-19 does not go away, which it's not looking like it's going to? How long will we continue to do this? I'd ask the school board to let the parents weigh the risks for our own children. We are capable of analyzing the data and making sound decisions ourselves.
Stephanie Rising.
Good evening. Pretty much everything I wanted to say has been
Could
covered.
you state your address, please?
Oh, 9630 Sheffield Avenue, Dyer.
Thank you.
I sent an email to you guys back on the 8th, and I'm sad to say Larry Veracco and Miss Malco were the only ones who bothered to respond to me. This is on the quarantining policy. You guys say you're following the science. You're following the science. Well, let's talk about the science. You have a policy currently set up that if we have 3 children sitting in a row, the middle child becomes infected with COVID and tests positive. The child on the right is being sent home for 10 to 14 days with no educational plan in place by this school board or this administration to make sure they're caught up. And the child over here on the left, well, even though they're asymptomatic, they've been exposed, they're going to stay in school. Your policy is discriminatory toward the students that are not vaccinated. We can all agree, the CDC, Dr. Fauci, they have all come out, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, they have all come out and said this inoculation is not given to prevent you from getting the virus. It is given to prevent you from getting seriously ill, going to the hospital. It can make you asymptomatic, yet this board and this policy is allowing those students to continue to walk around and infect other children. It's not right. It needs to be looked at. As far as the letter that was read by Mr. Marshall at the beginning of this about you guys not getting back on your emails, that is your job. If you can't do it, there's a whole lot of us in here that would be willing to do it. Miss Milton, you're supposed to be the professional up there. If you can't speak to people that you disagree with or that you don't like with a better tone and manner, your resignation needs to come. Because again, we'd all take your job. Thank you.
Jennifer Woods. Jennifer Woods. Jennifer Woods. Oh, sorry.
My address is 3425 Worth Road in Highland.
Thank you.
I don't have children in this school, but I thought my thoughts would be helpful to everyone. It follows up from the gentleman who was just here in the checkered shirt. I'm going to read just a couple paragraphs from an essay I read back in February when a lot of restrictions were still in place. This is from the Journal of Faith and the Public Square, a journal called First Things by a man named Peter Leithart. Let me catch my breath. The effort to preserve life by prohibiting the living of it doesn't work. It can't work. It would work if we were mere biological machines who need nothing but air, food, water, sewage, and shelter. It would work if men and women were nothing but detached shards of humanity who can flourish in isolation. It would work if we could save our life by merely preserving it. That's not how human life is designed. We have sacrificed all the social and cultural activities that lend beauty and richness to life, things that make life more than bare biological survival. We have sacrificed life to preserve life. It's bound to backfire. In our frenetic necrophobia, we flee death, avoiding contact with others, locking ourselves in our homes, obsessively washing our hands, avoiding public places and gatherings, all for the sake of survival. But a life without human touch, a life in which we never venture, a life without risk is no life at all, but a living death. To preserve bare life at all costs is suicide. To elevate bare life as the supreme value, we have to make the supreme sacrifice of life itself And so we flee from death and find ourselves, paradoxically, rushing into a living death. Thank you.
Tim True. Tim True.
Sorry, I was on the cheap seats. Tim True, 164 Primrose Drive, Dyer.
Thank you.
I'm here tonight on behalf of these two people. These are the most important people in my life. And this is why, as all these parents are here for the people in their life and these kids. Both of them actually wanted to speak to you tonight. I'm super proud of that, so I'll give them each a moment.
Hi, I just wanted to come up here and say that a lot of kids are very angry about how all we have to do is wear our mask 24/7 and never get a break from them. And I just wanted to come up here and say that I hope you make the right decision in making them optional. No.
He tapped out. So many parents have done such great work bringing you research, data, all sorts of reporting. There's nothing I can add to anything anybody said here. But at this point, we all know, I know you as a government organization have deferred to the next government organization, the Indiana Department of Health, and they're going to defer to the CDC. And the CDC is going to change their mind every other day of the week on what actually has to be done. So it's time for us to make grassroots decision at the local level on what is best for our community. So. However, if we're going to play this as a game and deferring and passing the buck, let's make sure we're all in this together here, okay? So these kids come to me and tell me they have to get policed on wearing a mask all day long, and then they ask, why are their teachers, why are the administrators moving their mask around and having a break over here in the corner? So let's make sure we're all on the same page and the same team here. I ask all you parents, make sure that our kids are our eyes and our ears. As long as this mask mandate is in place, let's make sure our kids are telling us who is not complying in this school district. And we will bring that list to you, and you can make sure that you explain why your team is not helping protect my team here. So thank you for the time. That's all I have to say.
Mary Carroll.
Hello, my name is Mary Carroll. My address is 1273 Flagstone, Dyer.
Thank you.
I have 4 grandchildren in the school and one with severe asthma. One grandson last spring did come down with COVID. He wore a mask. He was sick for 1 day and said staying in his room for 14 days was worse than having COVID. And you heard the symptoms. They are like having the flu. I also live in the state of Florida. All right, we have Governor DeSantis down there. He has mandated that masks be a parental choice. He has said that it's not like we're against masks, but it's a choice for parents to make for their own children. So I also have an article from the Wall Street Journal, which was published on August 9th, which was just a couple days after you guys made your decision about going back to wearing masks. The case against masks for children. I'll just cherry pick a couple things to read. Some children are fine wearing a mask, but others struggle. Those who have myopia can have difficulty seeing because of the mask fogs their glasses. This has been a problem for even medical schools. Masks can cause severe acne and other skin problems. The discomfort of a mask distracts from some children learning. By increasing airway resistance during exhalation, masks can lead to increased levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. And masks can be vectors for pathogens if they become moist or not and are used for too long. Again, this is from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. In March, Ireland's Department of Health announced it won't require masks in schools because they may exacerbate anxiety or breathing difficulties for some students. Some children compensate for such difficulties by breathing through their mouths. Chronic and prolonged mouth breathing can alter facial development. It is well documented that children who mouth breathe because of adenoids blocking their nasal airways can develop a mouth deformity and elongated face. The possibility of psychological harm of widespread masking is an even greater worry. Facial expressions are integral to human connection, particularly for young children who are only learning how to signal fear, confusion, and happiness. Covering a child's face mutes these nonverbal forms of communication and can result in robotic and emotionless interactions, anxiety, and depression. Seeing people speak in a building block of phonetic development.
Thank you.
All right, just one last thing. How do they learn
Amber
phonics?
Vladica?
How do they do it?
Amber? Amber? Thank you. Thank you.
Amber Vladica, 3719 Ginger Court.
Thank you.
My daughter Macy here wants to speak. Just one thing, if we're following the science, the first day of school was 90 degrees outside, and my second grader was forced to wear a mask outside on the playground, which the science shows the risk of COVID outside is very, very low. And the kids are having to choose. Either I wear a mask or I get to play with my friends. So all this social, emotional garbage that they're trying to force on our kids, remove the masks, let the kids play with their friends, let the kids be kids.
I'm scared. Hi, my name's Macy. I'm really scared, but I think it's really weird that the teachers get to take off their masks and teach when they're not even 6 feet apart from the students, and the students can't take off their mask for one breath.
And this is what's going on in the classrooms. This is what's going on in the classrooms. When you ask the kids how was their day, all they can comment on is how horrible it is about these masks. They hate school. And as educators, you're all up here because you love education and the kids. Listen to the kids. This is what they're focused on. They're not focused on math and reading and the real science about bugs in the sky and the grass. Let the kids learn. Take the masks away. Take the masks out of your responsibility and let us choose for ourselves.
Brendan Burrick?
My name is Brendan Burink, 9764 Tallgrass Trail, St.
Thank
John.
you.
So, most of the folks before me pretty much laid it out, hit all my talking points except for one. So let's give a hand to those people because you were way more prepared than me. So, all of the cases and data, everything you can put on the screen, the bottom line is the kids are not at risk. They've never been, right? 70% of us voted for optional masks. 70%. Just listen to the people and do what they say. That's your job, okay? So take my 3 minutes, and how about one of you motions to remove all that language with mandatory masks and the vaccine language? I urge you to motion the removal of that language from your protocols.
Who's going to be the hero?
Anybody? That's it. We've heard it. You've heard the people. This is the time. Motion. Do I hear a motion?
Make the motion.
You hear the people. Is there a motion?
Scott Rundle. Scott Rundle. We have 5 more. Jeff Shu.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Shu. I live at 14160 West 93rd Place, St. John, Indiana. I do appreciate the time and being able to speak to you this evening. I have 6 children. I'm very blessed. God has given them to me, and I just think the world of them. 3 of them go to Colleen. Tonight was parent-teacher conference, and if this wasn't scheduled during parent-teacher conference, there'd be 2,000 more people here. That was wrong. That was absolutely categorically wrong. You knew what you were doing and you hid behind the parent-teacher conference. It's despicable. Now, I was going to talk about facts and how micron levels don't go through masks. That was all talked about. But, you know, at the end of the day, 6 of you are registered Democrats. You don't care. You got your head in the sand. And that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. I came here from Illinois to get away from the tyranny. And all you've done is shove it right down my throat. I'm sick of it. But what I can do is I believe in the power of prayer. And I'm praying for all your souls. I hope that the Lord Jesus comes into your lives and you find God. Because it's the only way that you're going to see through all this BS that's in our lives right now. I want my freedom back. I want freedom for my children. I talked to Slager, who's sitting right over here. Hal Slager, he's our representative. I asked you to call Governor Holcomb because he's the only guy like Governor DeSantis can do. In an executive order, please call the governor. He will overrule these fools. I'm calling on you. Call the governor and make it happen.
Jeremy Orgazovich. 2 more. 2 more. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. We need to take a 2-minute recess. Rocco, are you ready? Jeremy Orgozovich, thank you for your patience.
Is this on? Hello.
Hi.
My name is Jeremy Ogrizovich. I live at 807 Gragan Place,
Thank you.
Dyer, Indiana. I'm a concerned parent, and the reasons are as follows. First, the apathetic look in my daughter's eye upon returning home from school. The second, in regards to helping her with her homework, making the statement, "I thought you went over this in class," only to hear her frustration at not being able to hear the teacher all the time during class. And the most concerning point is her elevated disgust sensitivity, fearing that her classmates or her teachers might be infected with some disease that is statistically insignificant to the majority of the population, especially of those under the age of 18. And this charade of mask wearing, for what? So that those with an inflated sense of orderliness can feel as though that they have some control on the situation? Well, they don't. We don't have control. Humanity botched the whole thing. This begs the question, what are we to do now? How are we to conduct ourselves? Now, concerning the manner of those members of the board who voted in favor of the mask mandate against the 70%, how is it that you all find it acceptable to defy the will of the majority of your constituents, based on a poll that you, the board, conducted? What are we, the people, supposed to deduce from your actions? Perhaps pride got the better of you, or you think us to be ignorant or irrelevant. On the other hand, I can conceive of a scenario in which some of you have made this decision out of fear, perhaps of the disease, or perhaps of political reprisal from an authority outside your constituents, perhaps bad press for supporting the wishes of your constituents, as opposed to thinking you know better. Combat made it abundantly clear to me that the decisions made while fear and pride cloud the decision-making matrix end up in unplanned destruction and death. Our powers of observation, conservation, and discernment and logic are to be the tools that give rise to good choices. Fear is the acceptable emotion prior to an act of bravery, and pride is the acceptable emotion after the act of bravery. Please be brave and stand with your community and let us have our choice. Let the kids be kids. Unmask the kids. Thank you for your time.
Sherry True. Sherry True. Oh.
(164) Primrose Drive, Dyer, Indiana.
Thank you.
Totalitarianism, a system of government in which people have virtually no authority and the state wields absolute control. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but this is not the form of government we have in the United States. You continually subvert the will of the people you represent. You continue to not vote the way your constituents tell you to vote. You continue to use your power to force our children to submit to your detrimental policies. You have brought tyranny to Lake Central. We, the people, will not stand for this. We, the people, stand for freedom of choice for our children. We, the people, stand against your tyranny. We, the people, will do everything in our power to restore the power back to the rightful owners, who is we, the people. Our freedom is granted from God, not government, and definitely not from a school board. We, the people, will not stop until every one of you is recalled or replaced with a freedom-loving American. And we, the people, have decided to choose freedom for our children today.
Jacob M.
I live at 1509 215th Street, Dyer, Indiana.
Thank you.
So I have a long-distance relationship with a girl who lives in Belgium, and the whole last year I was prevented from going to see her because of authoritarian governments. And someone actually mentioned Ireland not requiring their students to be masked. Well, Ireland wouldn't let me fly through their country, despite the fact that I'd only be there for 1 hour, and I had to find a different way to get to her. But I'll tell you this, Belgium is extremely authoritarian when it comes to restrictions on their people, and it didn't work. It didn't work at all. So something else is, it seems to me that, sorry, I'm bad at public speaking. It seems to me that you guys think that you can supersede the Constitution and the Supreme Court. So you guys like to hit the mute button on people that you don't want to hear from, and that's really disgusting in my opinion. So this is constitutional case law in our country. This is the right of the Tri-Town residents to critique you and your decisions. From the U.S. Supreme Court, 1964, New York Times versus Sullivan. Those who want our independence believe that public discussion is a political duty and that this should be a fundamental principle of the American government. They recognize the risk to which all human institutions are subject, but they knew that order cannot be secured merely through fear of punishment for its infraction, that it is hazardous to discourage thought, hope, and imagination, that fear breeds repression, that repression breeds hate, that hate menaces stable government, that the path of safety lies in the opportunity to discuss freely supposed grievances and proposed remedies, and that the fitting remedy for evil counsels is good ones. Believing in the power of reason as applied through public discussion, they eschewed violence coerced by law, the argument of force in its worst form. Recognizing the occasional tyrannies of governing majorities, they amended the Constitution so that free speech and assembly should be guaranteed. Thus, we consider this case against the background of a profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government officials. Because my time is limited, I'm going to skip reading the First Amendment and the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which means that this case law supersedes any precedent you set. Let me be very clear. I think I speak for most of the residents and parents in this meeting that we would like it to be civil. However, I caution you, solicitors, that unlike the bureaucrats of Morocco and the county health department's director, you are elected officials and you're beholden to us, and your powers do not supersede that of the U.S. Constitution or the Supreme Court.
Thank you. So that ends our public comments, and we'll move on to our board comments and consideration of future agenda items. And Dr. Malkow, we'll start with you today. There is no motion. Board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Board. What's your name? It's up to the board. And if you could state your name too, please.
Dante Geroloman, chip off the old block. That's my old man back there. Little confusing. I've never revealed this to anybody, but part of the reason that I began attending this fine school is because I suffer with Asperger's. I'm on the autism spectrum. Made it very hard for me, but so the teachers were extraordinarily helpful, and it was some of the best education that I've been able to get in my life. Unfortunately, Harvard Journal of Medicine study by Robin Tom, medical doctor, and occupational therapist, Karen, blanking on the last name, Karen, occupational therapist, was able to confirm that people on the autism spectrum are the most by and large extreme sufferers of mask wearing. Yet, in the language you've presented, there's very little opt-out for people suffering with this. And I speak on behalf of many people with autism because most of them might not have the cognitive skills to get up here today and speak. And look, I think there's a degree of irony to be pointed out in me, an autistic minor, coming up here and using more civility than many of the members of the board have used with their own constituents. I think that's a bit ironic. You asked for an apology on behalf of the teachers, perhaps rightly so. I think Dr. Medlin was right. The teachers are very brave. I absolutely appreciate what they've done. They've given me a fantastic education for which I'm eternally grateful. No, I think the apology now is due to us, the public, for being insulted, for being belittled by you because you think that your intellectual supremacy somehow gives you the right to tell us that we're not as smart as you. I think that you were elected to listen to us, and I think it's past time you do your job. Dr. Medlin, you were right. Teachers are brave. Unlike every member, except spare a few, unlike you especially, sitting on this board right now. I think it's time that you do the right thing. You stop hiding behind the mask. It's kind of ironic we're in a theater right now because you guys are all truly hiding behind masks. I think it's time you do the right thing. I think it's time we put the district first. I speak as a student. That's my piece.
Board comments and future agenda items. Start with you, Dr. Malco. Board comments. Start with you. I'm sorry? Did you have a comment, a board comment or not?
Okay, I have a couple of questions and comments, and Dr. Bracco, in your protocols that you went through with us, I didn't see anything there that reflected back-to-school nights, and I know that's a Lake Central specific program, but how will those be handled, the back-to-school nights?
Are you referring to open house?
Yeah, open house.
Yeah,
right.
I'd have to defer on part of that, but I mean, we're having them.
I just have a lot of people asking me, and I didn't know the answer, and I thought your summary would include that. So since it didn't, I thought I'd ask. You don't know? No one knows? Shh. Shh.
Dr. Malkow, we're still having the open house nights at the schools. The different
Yeah,
dates
that's why I
vary.
sent that
I'm
email to
sorry.
you.
We're still having the open house nights at all of the schools. The dates vary because we try not to stack a feeder elementary school, for example, on the same night as the middle school so that parents have children across multiple buildings that they would be able to attend. Masks are required. There are some principals who did encourage, if possible, to only have one parent attend just to keep the number of people in the classroom down. But if multiple parents needed to attend, that is possible.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
That's
Okay,
extracurricular after school.
Mrs. Castaneda, then will that be posted out there somewhere for people because
The
maybe the
principals have been
principals are
sending
sending it out?
The
Or
principals have been sending out information to the families that feed into their
Principals are
buildings.
sending
Yes.
it out, okay. All right. So I have another question. Excuse me, it's my turn now, okay? I have another question.
We can call for adjournment.
Do it.
Okay,
Call
I have
for
another
adjournment?
question
Call
for
for
you.
Do we-
Is e-learning at all going to be offered? Because I keep hearing rumors. How's that being handled?
So the students, if they're quarantined or home for COVID, they do get to look in as they did last year. What we have not promised is that we would stop the class with all the other students still in front of the teacher to check for understanding as we did last year. So the students still have the opportunity to get assistance and that will be worked out for sure, when they return, but also through other parts of the day.
Okay, so the assistants will be there, but it won't be an e-learning platform like last year.
Well, they're going to look at their assignments the same way as they did, but it's just
Right.
what we had last year, because we had such a high percentage of students at home, somewhere between 20 and 25 or 30 at the peak. The teachers would, with the kids in front of them, turn their attention to the students on the screen.
Okay. And then how are we handling if a student comes in with a medical excuse from a doctor? How is that being handled?
Well, we had one where it just said medical excuse, and so per our policy, whenever we do a modification to a student's plan like a 504, we need a little more detail than that.
Okay.
And so most doctors do give you a reason. If student needs to take if students need to take medication, for instance, at school, there has to be, enough information for us to know that the doctor actually wants that midday treatment to take place. And so we ask for more information. What exactly is this for?
Okay, thank you for that. Some other things. You know what? Some other things that, first of all, I want our public to know, there's all these rumors about me, that I joined these special education anti-groups and all these crazy rumors out there. I stay as far away from politics as I can due to my responsibility as a school board member. And you need to know that if we get to a point where I feel red is appropriate, I will support masks. I am not anti-mask. I'm okay to mask when I feel that it's at a very cautious and dangerous level. After listening to you speak tonight and other nights, and in reading all the emails that Mr. Marshall referenced, this is a tough decision to make. It's not easy. And the reason for that is because obviously we don't all see it the same way. We all have differing opinions. And our responsibility as board members is to represent all members of the community. All. So that's what makes it very difficult. I get concerned by following this national data, and I'm not going to budge on that because I just don't feel the CDC is close enough to us to tell us what's going on. I remember certain things like Dr. Fauci saying that masks are very important in areas of high infection. I consider all these things, but I also consider the parent survey results. And I know that the majority of our parents are wanting to go non-mask. You will find if you've done any research on me, what people are doing out there, because they hear things about me. If you will find that I'm not a rubber stamper, I will go out and do my own research if I disagree with what I'm hearing. And I have to say to you, in the educational research world at Ball State University, we were trained to use accurate and applicable data to our subject. By using what the State Department is saying, I don't consider that valid for us. And here's the reason why. Our State Department the other day, I found out through a WebEx that I attended, because I've been asking all these questions, why can we not get local data? Why can't we get Tri-Town positivity rate? So I was invited to attend a WebEx. And during that, I found out that our local county doctor has been asking for permission to release the positivity reports that she had in her hands like this. on the WebEx, but she was not able to release it because she did not have permission from the appropriate person down at the State House. So now I'm thinking, now wait a minute, now this is really, really crazy. We've only been asking for this for about 2 weeks. And then you throw in the fact that the state data is inaccurate. They have St. John at 13,000, and we're much higher than that. Okay, so that could be based on the 2016 census, but if you're doing research, you get the right numbers, and you do it the right way. You don't just assume that we're back at the 2016 numbers. So knowing that and hearing all this information, I mean, is there an opportunity to amend the agenda to include another item tonight, Mrs. Suze?
No. I'm sorry? No.
Just whatever you want to do. I mean, I understand.
Well, I agree that the answer would be
The
no.
problem with amending the agenda with an action item is that there are a lot of other people on the other side of this issue.
And
Where are they? They're not here because there's no action item on the advertised agenda.
they should have
Okay.
the same opportunity to be here.
There's an open door law.
All right, thank you.
They
That's
should
all I
have the
wanted to
same
know.
opportunities to be here.
The open door law in Indiana requires you to advertise
That's right.
your agenda.
The open door
Okay.
law will be violated. We need to advertise so the other people have the same opportunity as all of you to be here to speak if they so choose.
Hey.
So no, the answer's no.
So as I was saying, the open door law allows you to schedule another meeting in 48 hours if you want to. But you do have to advertise action items so people on both sides of the issue have the opportunity to address the board. And that's the law. People do violate the law and they don't get called on it. But the truth is, if someone does call you on it, the board gets fined, the corporation gets fined, and we get a black eye.
Go ahead, move to adjourn. Good.
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? We have a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.